ज्योतिः परस्य धीमहि यन्नः सत्येन दीपयेत्। तत्सवितुर्वरं रूपम् ज्योतिः परस्य धीमहि यन्नः सत्येन दीपयेत्।
Good morning and good evening. Welcome to the Friday Study Circle, where we are taking up the passages, good evening, Captain, of the Sunlit path. So, invoking Mother St. Aurobindo's presence and grace, and aspiring for more expansion and light to enter our lives, our practical everyday lives, through these powerful words, which are, as Mother says, forces in action. Last week, we had started, we read this, how to truly will, and then we started discussing, things related to this, but we did not take it up line by line, but we can just read it again and take it up today, just take it more intimately if there is any need. Once we read it, we realize if we want to talk more about it or not. So if anybody is willing, how to will truly, we can read it once again.
I'll read it.
Yeah, thank you.
How to will truly. To learn how to will is a very important thing. And to will truly, you must unify your being. In fact, to be a being, one must unify oneself. If one is pulled by absolutely opposite tendencies, if one spends 3/4 of his life without being conscious of himself and the reasons why he does things, is one a real being? One does not exist. One is a mass of influences, movements, forces, actions, reactions, but one is not a being. One begins to become a being when he begins to have a will, and one cannot have a will unless he is unified. And when you have a will, you will be able to say to the divine, I want what you want, but not before that. Because in order to want what the divine wants, you must have a will. Otherwise, you can will nothing at all. You would like it very much. You would very much like to want what the divine wants to do. You don't possess a will to give to him, but to put at his service.
Yes, thank you, Nandini. So, any reflections at this point? So I don't exactly remember what we discussed last week, but just taking it up fresh. So will, we know, is very important. And we do know by now that how what I call as my will, my likings, my preferences, my morals, a lot of them, rights and wrongs, are not really mine. I have picked them up from here and there. A lot of things I still do are influenced based on where I am. What was I told was a good thing. And I don't question much mostly. And if there is a questioning, that's usually not very strong. So it's like, I was just thrown into a flow of water and I'm just flowing along with it. And of course, struggling and suffering. And yet a lot of times I hold on to what I believe so strongly that I don't know what is it that I want to do. So what I call as will is not really will. It's just a set of conditioning, as JK says very nicely, is there. So to learn how to will is a very important thing. Okay, what is it that I want? Where do I want to go? And to will truly, you must unify your being. So yeah, I'm now remembering. I think we had discussed what this unification of being had meant. Last time we had taken that up quite intensively, that how a part of me wants this, another part wants this, and inner voice is saying this, but the brain is saying that. And I think in Savitri also there is this line which says that, now he crossed the borders where thought kind of ruled life. How our thoughts are ruling our life. But then Ashwapati crossed that border and thoughts don't rule his life anymore. There's something higher that's ruling it. So a little bit. So for that too, one has to, that unification is needed and one needs to move beyond the thoughts. So if one is pulled by absolutely opposite tendencies, if one spends 3/4 of his life without being conscious of himself and the reasons why he does things, is one a real being? I mean, it's hard to accept that we do that. And yet, if we are honest with ourselves, if we look at a lot of things that we do, it's just because those were expected or those just happened. Somebody suggested and it worked out. So if one says, why are you doing this? Why are you here? A lot of times we are dumbfounded. We are just like, ye kya sawal hai? What is this question? Why am I'm here? Just because I am here. So I don't confront things a lot of times. But here it's saying that if I don't even know, if I'm not even conscious of myself, am I a real person? Am I a real being? One does not exist. One is a mass of influences, movements, forces, actions, reactions, but one is not a being. One doesn't have that individual freedom that I'm doing this because of this is, and that's why I guess this stress on that, listen to that voice, listen to this voice. I think there's this beautiful quote from Rumi too, that there's a voice that doesn't use words, listen. So one begins to become a being when he begins to have a will, and one can't have a will unless he is unified. Because even if there is some movement, there is some tendency, the other parts of me keep pulling me back. Or if, I'm not, and I remember we had taken it up in HC too, maybe even a year back, this topic that I'm not one, I'm many. I'm so scattered a lot of times. If I pay attention, I would see I get up to do something, then another voice says, Arey, let me do this. I decide to do this. But the other voice says, are you sure that you have to do this? Kind of. So I kind of keep standing against my own self. I keep obstructing my own paths. And I don't a lot of time realize that. And I think that's why in one of the sessions, I think it was Jishnuji who had come recently and he had shared, some things from the mother. And there was this thing that if you know what you have to do it immediately. If you're getting, an inspiration, just do it. Don't sit on it and start weighing the odds and of, the pros and cons. And, I remember when I was, I don't know, maybe at least 5, 6 years back, if I had a decision to make, I'll make a list, why I should do this, why I would not do this. And I would actually pay a lot of attention and with a lot of sincerity I would make these lists, but I don't know if there were any help. They just let, I guess, maybe just the thoughts to find some channel. Okay, I've heard you. Okay, yes, I've heard you. But I don't know if it ever helped me go towards anything. So will is something strong, right? Like will is, okay, this is what I will. So if I'm not unified, the unification we had discussed in plenty last time, one can't have a will unless he's unified. So anything on this passage before we move to the paragraph, actually, the second one?
The other day, I was attending Savitri class. So there, the two words are coming. One is being and one is becoming. So I was trying to find out what is being and what is becoming. So the English understanding or whatever was there. So I was little perplexed. So I was trying to read the books wherever it is. But here the definition is very clear. One does not exist. One is a mass of influences, movements, forces, actions, reactions, but one is not a being. So what is not the being? So that has been explained. And next, what is being? That definition is given. One begins to become a being when he begins to have a will. So when you start initially, when it's the first time when I had a will, so that was the beginning to become a being actually. So and one cannot have a will unless he is unified. So unification is the first thing, and second is that will. When the will is there, so I understood that I am being, but now further development is the becoming. The further development on that being will be the becoming. This was the understanding which I finally formed. I hope I am correct.
I also resonated with you, Captain, in the sense that I always felt that, you know, when you go into the spirituality path, you always seek divine will. What is the divine will? And I'm not sure where I read Aurobindo only. I think it was on his talk on individuality, where he said that we cannot know the divine will if we do not even have our own will, which was very like on my face, like, you know, like I think I want to know divine will, but he's saying that is it, like you saying it's a form of becoming. So it's like I want to go to Z, but I've not even started the journey from A. So in that sense, it resonated a lot that it's about from being to becoming. So you have to be a being. And I think Mother is saying, even in the first paragraph, she says that you do not have even your own will. That means you're not even a human being. So even in Savitri, say, you know, our man was the man is half animal and half human, half animal, and yet a candidate to be divine. I'm paraphrasing, but there's something like that. So I mean that you know we have to become human beings first. Having a will, because animals do not have a very strong will. They go by instinct. That whatever looks safe, whatever is okay, I'm gonna do that. And it's a very collective herd mentality. If you have heard, you know, comes from the herds, the cattle's. So that was a good point from even that I capsulated, that you have to become a being, human being, and the first step is individuality. That I know that I have to do this, and it has to be very strong. Like that day, I remember when I was a teenager and all, even later on, you know, from my family, I remember my grandmother used to say, "Oh, it's very hard. It will be very hard to get her married," because you know, I used to say, "No, I want to do this. I want to do this," and you know, it was very strong about things that this is how I want to live my life. I want to do my PhD from abroad. This, you know. So like that. But then I think the next step is about what you're saying about becoming, where you know where I think we'll read in the next paragraph where Mother says that once you have a will, it's that's the step, that's good, and then you have to really align it to the divine will. So it's like becoming into this. So yeah, it resonated quite well. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. That I feel it's mostly like if I'm looking at myself, I'm always something, right? I'm always something and I'm always going towards something. So that I think being and becoming is always there, but what being am I and what am I becoming towards, right? What am I going towards? That is the main thing. So, and that is why, so many, especially I don't know, in right now, totally awed by that aphorism from Sri Aurobindo, where, he has listed those 5 things that um, when we move beyond knowings, then we shall have knowledge. Knowledge was the helper, knowledge is the bar. When we move beyond willings, then we shall have the power. Effort was the helper, effort was the bar. When we move beyond enjoyings, then we shall have bliss. Desire was the helper, desire was the bar. When we have moved beyond individualizing, then we shall become real persons. Ego was the helper, ego was the bar. And I think when we have moved beyond humanity, then we shall become um, human, not humanity. When we have moved beyond, then we shall become. So, animal was the helper, animal was the bar. When we have moved beyond humanity, then I shall become the man, a man. Like humanity may, that also keeps sucking us in, right? So when we have moved beyond humanity, then we shall be the man. Animal was the helper, animal was the boss. So everything I have to keep transcending. I think that is why, when somebody had asked the definition of divine, the people, who said we don't believe in God, Mother had said perfection. Because perfection is not the point. But yes, like Captain was saying, I have to be something if I want to become something, if I have a will to become something in that light. On a very different note, I had stumbled upon a book in the library last week, and it was a book of a story written, like his real story, by an astronaut. I forgot his name. And I just read a few pages, and it was pretty amazing that he was 9 years old when he saw the first rocket launch. And at that moment, he said, I want to be an astronaut. And he said, I had no clue what being an astronaut means. But he said, I started thinking that, okay, what could be the things that an astronaut would want to learn? So then he started asking his parents to enroll him into classes which would expand his thinking. He started building his muscles. Like not in the sense, it was as if his whole life at the age of 9, from the age of 9, he just started becoming more and more and more kind of prepared. So he started preparing himself so beautifully, but not telling anybody because it's such a, he said, who would believe a 9-year-old who would say, I want to be an astronaut? They'll be like, yes, all of us want to be an astronaut. So he didn't even share, and his whole life had that central goal. Okay, did this, and always saying that I'm doing this because it's a joy. It's not that if I don't become, because the chances of becoming are so minute that never stopped him. Okay, what if I don't become? That's fine. But at least I want to give it a shot. So his whole preparedness amazed me, that chapter on what all I started doing. And then, one starts wondering what is one doing to become what one says one wants to become. And because I say I want to become things, and yet I find myself running after things that are taking me in different directions. That is why this question of one must have a will, one must have unification. Because if he's decided, then he's not letting laziness come in the way, right? He's not letting distractions come in the way. And that's a 9-year-old child. And if I look at myself, I'm like, oh my God, where do I hide my face? But it's okay. Mother says, don't hide, show it to me. So I would not hide. But it's quite revelatory, right? That I say certain things, I aspire for certain things, I feel strongly for certain things, and yet are my actions, my decisions, my journeyings, my walkings leading me towards that? Because the aphorism that I read, it's also so beautiful that I need to have those things first before I can move beyond. And those things are needed fully to move beyond them, and then they would take me to where I need to be. Yeah. Yeah. Any reflections?
Just a doubt. So when we talk about will, uh, so of late I've been feeling that there's so much focus on the self, right? Like all our thoughts are about ourselves. What are my problems? What are my wishes? What are my desires? What are my who's bothering me? Who's annoying me? Who you know who's doing this wrong to me, and like self, I, me, myself, there's so much about ourselves that goes on in our mind. So when I think about will, is it again bringing the focus back on me? um, is it again creating this whole thing that I did, I wished, I charted out, I pathed it out? So is it again that like at this stage where that I, me, myself, I felt did help me in a certain journey of my life, but now I feel like I need to shed all those egocentric attitudes. And now when I think about will again, I feel like again I'm like creating that thing where I decided, I did. Is it kind of again being a ego boost?
Yeah, I would say it is. And yet, like you said, and like we were discussing, it is needed till a certain point, right? If I'm living as a nobody, and I'm suffering, if I'm suffering, if I'm not suffering, that's good, maybe I'm fully surrendered and I'm living as a nobody. But when I do not matter, from there I need to matter to myself so that I have something, right? Okay, this is me and this is where I want to be. There is something, some desire, some passion, something, so I have to give myself that attention. And once when I realize that, okay, now I am something, now this something needs to be self-forgetful, and then the becoming happens. So what Captain was saying, the being is first being ready that, okay, I am a being. And then when one wants to go further, when one gets tired, right? First one is like, okay, totally ignored. Like there's nothing that I want because everything one is serving and doing this for others and other things that we say going toward the goal. When one is not feeling a joy there, then one says, but what about me? And then we start doing things that, we want. We start listening to ourselves. We see, okay, these are the things I like. This is what I want to do. And then comes the stage when we get tired of that too. Okay, what is this me all the time? Because it's very self-limiting, right? And then one is like, okay, now that I have this, that I know I'm this, and I am feeling stifled by this too, then that happens, and then I can move more towards the becoming. So that's also important. First forming it and then offering it and moving beyond it is also very, very important. So it's like a journey, right? That step 2, step 3, step 4, not as such, but just a ladder that one has to mostly use the same path all of it. And we know when it's time, we know when we have had enough, we know sometimes we get tired. Kitna aaye yaar, kitna? So yeah.
Also, I feel to say for myself, especially to have a will, I sometimes feel it's quite limiting. And what you were saying, you know, to have a will, when we can have a will for many things. And people can have similar wills for different reasons. But that's why it's very important, especially if we are on this path, is to know will for what, or will towards what for myself. So, for example, like these days I'm thinking, okay, I should lose some weight. I should have a good body. I have a very good friend who is such a fitness enthusiast, so good discipline, all the qualities that I want to have. Like running on time, doing this, having good control of food and everything. But for both of us want it for different reasons. And like my will to have a good body is oriented towards, maybe so that this body become an instrument towards the life I want to lead. For her, it is more about looking good, about different things and that thing. So I think to have a will towards what is also very important, we need to ask, and that question itself shifts the orientation from myself to the larger self that I want to create. So even what Taru said, and I also started, there's actually I would share, it's a very beautiful book that mother has written, practical, really practical, for austerities and for liberation. So that's a book where mother has practically given guidance for if you want to begin the yoga, or forget even not integral yoga, but even to have a good spiritual life or a happy life, what are the things that should be done? Very practical stuff. For example, if she says you want to do the sadhana of the mind, well, the big thing, not to say a lie. Be very conscious about the things that you lie, because the moment you said the lie, the mind cannot receive intuition or cannot receive the light. So stop lying, even small things. So for me as well, that was a great eye opener. And because I have a tendency of making small lies here and there. So I mean, like I feel that the journey is not, it will not end. The journey starts from I and will end to the I. But that I is not the I of the ego, but it is the larger I. Or in Buddhism, they say from self to selfness. So they say you are self, and when you join the Sangha, you become a cell in Buddha's body. You're still a cell, but you are actually a cell in the Buddha's body. And that is what Sangha does to you. I really loved that thing, that they say. I think that's the thing that I've understood, that, I is there. Right now I'm limited to this big I, but the goal is to emerge in a higher I, because the work will always be on myself. If I can think I can, work on other people, and it's not possible. So towards the end, I think the work is only on yourself. How can I make myself more perfect? How can I do this? How can I do that? So that I can actually become that larger I. So, just that thing I thought I would share.
Nandini, I like that a lot, what you were saying about the cell. So is that, I'm trying to understand that better. So from self, are you going into like cell, Cell, into
Cells,
Buddha's body?
cell.
Yeah.
Buddha's body. I
Okay.
can share, there's an article as well that came in the Mindfulness Bell. So, and they use it as
Okay.
well, usually in talks. So yeah, exactly. From self to self. So you become a
Okay.
self. Yeah, I'll share it if you want on the
Thanks for
topic.
sharing. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I just pulled up some words of the mother on will and perseverance. So I thought maybe it would be nice to go through a few things. Maybe this would be something nice to read if anybody wants to read it. Otherwise, I will go.
I'll read it.
Hmm.
One must have an unvarying will to acquire what one does not have in one's nature, to know what one does not know, what one does not yet know, to be able to do what one cannot yet do. One must progress constantly in the light and the peace which come from the absence of personal desire. If one has a strong will, he has only to orient it properly. If he has no will, he has first of all to build one for himself, which always takes long and is sometimes difficult.
Yes, thank you, Chetan. Even this is very beautiful that even the most beautiful thoughts will not make us progress unless we have a constant will for them to be expressed in us through nobler feelings, more exact sensations, and better actions. And a lot of times we get stuck here that something beauty that I'm feeling, sensing, thinking, I feel this is enough. I have become it. But it doesn't happen, at least right now, the way we are. So even the most beautiful thoughts will not make us progress. And if the aim is progress, there has to be a constant will for them to be expressed in us through nobler feelings, more exact sensations, and better actions. I could be, I don't know, wrong, but I want to say this, that if I even talk about aspiration, it also feels like it's a will in progress, right? Like I want this, I don't know how to become this, and I'm aspiring to become this. So at least, my vision, it's directed towards something. So that's like I'm strengthening my will to be that. And because I, being me, have limited strength, so I'm aspiring that please, 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 give me or make me. And then because of grace and because of that constant aspiration, things are given and magic happens, progress happens. Taking this one, if anybody wants to read. Yeah.
I'll read.
Yes.
Uh, my lower nature continues to do the same stupid things. You alone can change it. What are your conditions? Number one, to be convinced that you can change. To will to change without accepting the excuses of the lower nature. To persist in the will in spite of every fall. To have an unshakable faith in the help you receive.
Yes, thank you, Captain. I think this is really helpful. Very, very practically we can, I guess, feel it. And if there's any reflections, they are welcome.
Actually, the story is narrated sometimes. It was that 5 drunkard persons. So that was the second para actually in this. So because our lower nature are killing us actually. So in that story, the 5 drunkard chap, they were just walking on the highway in Calcutta, and so once they saw the police chap on duty, they got scared. It was midnight, and they thought that they will be caught that they were drinking and not walking properly or something. So then somebody says, "Let us stop here and think for a while." So everybody was thinking to find a solution what to do. So one person says that I found one. So then he says, "What?" All other people, they asked, "What is that?" So he said that, "Say, I am going to die, so I'll be a dead body, and all 4 of you will carry me on the shoulder, and you will shout out, 'Ram Nam Satta Hai, Ram Nam Satta Hai,' and like you're carrying the dead body, and we'll pass through. And then once we cross the police trap, he's not going to ask anything because dead body is going. And then again we'll be our own and we will move forward. So everybody said, okay, yes. So that person, one chap who proposed this, he became a dead body and people were carrying. But they came to a place where the police chap was standing. There was actually road moves in 4 directions. So and they all the 4 chaps, they were saying that the Samsan Bhumi where they are going, somebody is telling in this direction, somebody is telling in this direction, and all the 4 are showing the 4 directions, and they were pulling the chap dead body who was there on that. So once it became too much, he was not in a position to tolerate. So the dead body started speaking. Everybody saying that I know which side you have to go. So then somebody says that why didn't you tell? He says because I am dead. I am dead body. I cannot speak. So like we are when lower nature has captured us actually. So we will not believe. If we will argue and all and friends and other things, and all other people, they will dissociate me. If I have a will or something else, so naturally because of the lower nature, or will not be in a position to move much on the line, move forward. So that will has to be made within me first, and as the mother says that it has to be strong will. So then you can overcome with this. But most of us are dead in the family life, so which is equivalent to that that animal nature of the mankind and all. Animals are also nature some which are common to human being as well as an animal. So not all the qualities, but yes. So that is why the differentiate between the human being, manhush, that Ramakrishna Paramahansa used to say, manhush. Man means your respect and regards and all this. And hush means you know, wherever you are, you know that this is below my standard, so I should not be there, or I should not be talking like this. This is not me as a human being. So once that sense comes, that means we have already got the will, so we can overcome. Thank you.
So we can take up the second para. There's also a nice article I had found in how to, develop one's will. I'll share that. We can go through it, but maybe we can take this first and then we'll go through it. Yes, Sujata ji.
Okay. And when you have a will, you will be able to say to the divine, I want what you want, but not before that. Because in order to want what the divine wants, you must have a will. Otherwise, you can will nothing at all. You would like it very much. You would very much like to want what the divine wants to do. You don't possess a will to give to him and to put at his service.
Yes, thank you. It's almost like this, that how we use that example. At times, there's a boat, like your boat is in the river, and you don't have any desire, any kind of direction that where I want my boat to go. And either I just let the currents do it, but without anything, okay, this is where I would want the currents to take me. And most often, what we do is we tie our boat to another boat, which seems to know where they are going. And then I'm going and drifting along with them and then feeling like, where am I going this? Why am I going here, there? But I don't unhook my boat because I don't know which direction I need to direct my boat to. So here, I think Mother is saying that if I don't even have my own control over my boat, right? Or any direction towards which I want my boat to go, it will just go anywhere. So first, to have control over where I'm going, to have an idea, to have an aspiration, a journey and destination towards where I want to be. And then you can say that, yes, divine, take me where you want to. take me, because usually my boat is tethered to another boat which is just going wherever astray. And then if I'm praying that take me where you want to go, take me where you want me to be, that doesn't work that effectively. Like I first need to untie, have my own boat, and then I can offer it that here's, see, this is it, and this is the anchor, and this is it, and now this is where I think I need to go, and take me where you think I need to go. So, but we are very clever. We don't want to just remain standing, and this is where the emptiness, the doubts, and all they come in. Not the doubts, but emptiness. That then you could feel lost because still you were tethered to another boat. It felt you have an identity. It seemed you were going somewhere as a family unit of boats. So that has more kind of, I don't know, adventure and unknown elements than me just holding on to a boat and being taken wherever the other boat is taken. So I'll have to defy that and the undercurrents and see where I want to direct it.
There are two proverbs, actually, English proverbs. Where there is a will, there is a way. So that is one. It's very strong. We have used every time during our studenthood or otherwise. And the second one is an aimless man. Rather, here it is willness actually. An aimless man is like a sheep without a rudder. Means that sheep is moving and without the guidance actually where you want to go, as you were saying. So there are two proverbs actually. It was widely used to explain something that you have to have a will to move in a particular directions. Thank you.
Also, the safest kind of place that sometimes I've felt is that, I try to make some plans if I want to do something and plan it meticulously. And then I just tell the mother that, look, in front of the photo, I keep it. I said, this is how I've planned. And, but this is my will, how I've planned. But ultimately, just make it beautiful, let thy will be done and not mine. But I've made an effort, but you see how it should be done. And often I have seen that sometimes the plan go much, it always goes much more beautiful, of course, than I've thought. But sometimes it doesn't at all go half planned. Everything will be topsy-turvy, this, that. And so my God, what actually happened? And this doubts that why I actually asked the mother, I gave it to her, I put it in under her protection. I remember there was this first conference I was organizing very enthusiastically, and did a lot of work, this, and I just gave it to the mother. Like I said, okay, please do it. And that conference did not go well at all. 2 speakers did not turn up. Something did not work. And imagine the speech that I prepared so nicely, I only forgot. And I was like, it doesn't happen at all, because I think I feel like I'm a good speaker. But at that point, it was completely. And, of course, my head of the department was quite disappointed because I took the duty and did not go. And I was so sad for 2 weeks that, I really did hard work. It's not that I was slacking. I did everything I could, but still it turned out like this. And I even invoked Mother's grace. It did not happen. But I don't know, like later on, this realization came, or I kind of understood that a lot of ego, a lot of me has gone into the plan that, I got it and somebody else didn't. So, when even people, 2 of my colleagues said, oh, can we help you? All of a sudden, I was trying to be nice, but inside I thought, no, I want to do it. I want to be, it should be my show, Very consciously, when I sat down, I could actually see that kind of there, which was not on the surface, but deep down. So, I mean, that thing, that sometimes when you say to the divine, let thy will be done, it can be very disastrous to our surface level ego. Same with my mother, how everything happened with her, with her treatment and all. And I was really upset at the mother. And even I was so angry at her. I said, I don't want to speak to you. What did you do to me? Like, I remember for 15 days, I did not even better sit down in front of her photo because I was so angry at her. And, but slowly something will happen and you will see that there is a deeper message. It is not that. So, yeah, I think it is worthwhile always to do this practice. Sometimes it will turn out to be very beautiful. It is always very beautiful, but for your ego, it can be sometimes, not sometimes, but all the time, it can break it up. But she always tried to make it very beautiful. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Nandini. Very interesting. A lot of things. Like I remember once I was sleeping with my, son next to me, and he moves a lot. And a lot of times I keep some pillows around him. But that day, we had done a harmony circle on faith. And I was like, no, no, I have faith he would not fall. And I turned the other way and I slept. And thadam, after 5 minutes, I heard him fall. And then I was like, oh my God, but I said I have faith he won't fall. And then I started laughing that I can just stop at I have faith, right? That whatever happens is for good. It doesn't mean I can dictate that I have faith, this will happen. I have faith, that will happen. This is where we get stuck. And then we say, Are ye kaisa Bhagwan hai, mitti ka, and stuff, the Bollywood dialogue. So just that no matter what happens, that would be for the best for everyone is where I can stand. And I remember I was like, I think I was in school, grade 4 or grade 5, and something had happened to one of the friends, like her father had, I don't know, ran away, the mother passed away within 6 months, and the kids were left all alone, and lot of issues were happening. And I was like, what kind of a God is this? This is not a good God. Like, I would not want to believe in this God. So for about, I think, 2 days, I kind of entertained that idea. But then I think the light turned on me and I was like, what kind of a person I am? That if I see something not working out or happening that I'm not used to, I will give up. Like, this is my love for God. So I think it really depends on, which side do you want to hold on to? That, okay, I don't believe because it's not matching my criteria. And Nandini, what you shared, there's this, I'm forgetting the name, but for Sri Ravi Shankar, there's somebody who had written a book about his personal experiences with him, and he was in the US, and Sri wanted to be part of a certain conference, or he thought that Sri should be part of this amazingly big spiritual conference. There were 25 speakers from the world, and he really tried very hard to get him in. He got a spot for him, lot of fighting and whatever. And then she came from India and everything. And this person's as if everything was at stake, that, okay, now I have made sure he has come, he has arranged everything, like picture perfect, everything going on, da, 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 da. And when it was time for Sri to come and take the stage, he didn't turn up. Like, he had come from India to that city and all, and he didn't come for that 15 minutes car drive. He said, I don't want to go. And for that person, it was like hell broke loose, right? Like how much he had convinced organizers that this is a speaker you must have, and the speaker doesn't turn up. And then when he went to him, first Rishi called him and he was very upset and he hugged him, he said, and then he said, do you still love me? And he said, I do. And he was like, okay, do you have any questions? Because he wanted to, he went with a little bit of anger. Ki, why would you not come? Why would you do this to me? And he was like, do you still love me? And he said, I do. And that's it. How that we feel, say, that's what needs to be done. This what needs to be done. There's so many people involved. Like you were saying that the head of the department was, disappointed. Like those things feel so big then, right? And yet something shifts and it's like, all right, then, that I had to see something. There was some ego, something that I could make it happen. And it didn't happen. So really good to see how, where I see that this is bad, this is good, how it's not that at all in the larger scheme of things. It really grounds us And I think course correction ho jata hai na? Without realizing, we are doing things, we jump on things, and when we fall flat, we're like, oh God, did I actually jump there? Thank God I fell. So, yeah, very nice. Beautiful example from everyday life. Yeah, any reflections on this? Hmm? Just going through this, and when you have a will, you will be able to say to the divine, I want what you want. So once I know, okay, I am this and I have this will, this personality, or this independence, then I can say, I think personality was a wrong word, but I want what you want, but not before that. Because if I am tethered to something, how can I say I want what you want? Because in order to want what the divine wants, you must have a will. Otherwise, you can will nothing at all. You would like it very much. You would very much like to want what the divine wants to do. You don't possess a will to give to him and put at his service. So if I want to put myself at his service, if I have an aspiration that make me a perfect instrument of the divine. That will is something that I would have to work on, and I'll come to it myself again and again. That needs to be done. I remember there was this 5 days or 7 days conference of Dr. Basu, and maybe 2 hours every day. And it was so high up there, the words he was using and everything. But only one thing that I felt he kept repeating was that align your will to the divine will, align your will. And after 7 days, when he was like, do you have any questions? I wanted to unmute and ask that, what was this? What is it that you were giving us? I didn't quite get, but then I thought, okay, if I got this, this message, that just align your will to the divine will. And he was like, one must focus, he kept repeating on this. This is the center, the will center and stuff, that one must align. I think that was enough. So I didn't feel the need to ask him what was it that I should have gotten out of it. But yeah.
Also, I feel when you don't have a will, when you don't have a will, it's easier to say, let thy will be done. But it becomes so hard. And that is why mother is saying that first have a will and then ask the divine that the divine will be done. Don't do it. Because when I have a will, it becomes so hard to say let thy will be done, because my mind wants that. Like I'm grappling with something that I wanted to happen. And then I say, no, she will do it. Let her do it. But then my mind will say, acha, in a month I will try, and then I say, no, she will do. And I keep saying with myself that this is something I want. I have a will regarding this, but it's very difficult to say let thy will be done. Although it's a process, of course, it will take time, doesn't happen. But yeah, so also on that is why she says that to have a will and then say let thy will be done. Don't say it before, because that is very easy to say. Okay, because I don't have that's why they even mother even distinguish between dynamic surrender and passive surrender. That some, because people surrender is okay, nothing I have to do, just surrender, you do. It's not that. So it is very dynamic. So yeah, just wanted to say that as well, that it's very difficult, these things.
I want to ask a couple of questions. One is, Tarun, you were saying this is the time to really see the movement. Which is the will?
Yeah,
Is
Chetna,
it
I
here?
can't
I mean,
understand. It's breaking too much.
okay. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, now, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's better, I think. Yeah.
So okay, I want to ask which is the center for the will? Is it the navel?
I think they say the third eye, that's the center of the will, but I am not good at these things. I don't really look at it. But from the conference that I was saying, this is the place he said to focus on the third eye. Yeah.
Okay. 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 Maybe they would be connected. Also, I want to ask, like, what Nandini was saying right now, right? To have a will. I mean, sometimes you don't have a will. I mean, like, like there are different phases. Like I used to be a person who used to have a will and all of that. But there is a phase where you don't have a will. Then how to develop the will? I mean, one can understand that maybe allow a psychic being to come forward, but one doesn't even recognize what is the psychic being, what is its voice. So, I mean, how to have a will? And I mean, sometimes I feel, wouldn't it be more difficult that I have a worldly will, I surrender it. Instead, if I have that whatever power.
Yeah, I can't, I tell you, she's gone. Yeah, couldn't hear it at all. So she comes back really fast. Usually we'll give it. Yeah, here she is. Yeah, Chetna.
I guess I'm just trying to ask how to have a will if
Yeah.
one is
Yeah, so I think this
Mhm.
article that I was saying, okay, I got an article that I thought was nice. We could read it together. So this is Integral Yoga and WordPress.com, how to increase willpower. So this would probably shed more light on it. We can maybe go on for another 15 minutes and then end. So if anybody is willing, we can take one paragraph at a time and slowly go through it. If it's too long, I'll share it. And either we could do it together next week or do it in our own time. Yeah. Captain, would you be wanting to read?
Yeah.
Thank you.
We know we are doing something wrong, and yet when the time comes, we are unable to stop ourselves. This can happen for very small things and also for things which have a crucial impact on our lives. When we are quiet by ourselves, we feel that we'll not indulge in wrong movements or repeat our mistakes. But as soon as the occasion arises, not only do we forget our resolutions, but even begin to find justifications and excuses for our indulgence. And the whole cycle repeats itself over and over again. We sometimes wonder why this is so. This article explores the way out of this psychological predicament. The human personality is extraordinarily complex, consisting of several antagonistic parts nominally bound together under the control of the mind. The mind itself is not a flawless instrument either. It is always capable of finding a way of explaining everything and providing admirable reasons for its conclusions. Depending on which side one begins to argue from, it can justify any impulse in the world. The mind cannot eliminate the multitudinous impulses and desires we cherish within. It can only suppress them until the moment inevitably comes when mind becomes fatigued or foggy, allowing some other part of the personality to revel and satisfy its pent up thirsts. The other being to observe is that one cannot exhaust a desire by fulfilling it just once or a few times. The habit patterns cannot be broken by reinforcing them even marginally. They are nullified only after we have cast ourselves into the greater light of the Spirit.
Yeah, should we pause there and see if there's any reflections? Is it clear? Yeah, Captain, anything from you?
Uh, in fact, what psychology I was reading that this is absolutely right in the decision, like in our mind. Mind is playing as I call it supersonic, right? More than the speed of the light is the speed of the mind thinking power. It runs amok. It is very difficult to control, and so in the mind that everything comes. Whether you want to justify something, so that also can be done by mind, and in whichever way actually. So like there are some good speakers, and if you tell them that okay, you have to justify so and so, even the person is wrong, but he will put some logic and this and that, and it will appear that person was right. And similarly you can put otherwise also, vice versa. So that sort of thing actually mind plays. We have my perception is that we have become the servant of the mind. It is otherwise. The mind, if I am keeping under control, I should be the master, not the mind. But majority of us are not the masters of the mind, because once we control the mind, that means you achieved something. That whether we want to achieve some will or aspiration or whatever the, even a little bit of control, if you can exercise, you can see the effect of it. If we sit down quietly and think over, and we can see if we exercise, we have succeeded in exercising. That is by sadhana or practice, some control, and we can see the great result. Because the speed of the mind is so high, we cannot even imagine. The nature, that much faster it can think, and it can estimate. So that is why that argument or say debate and all this, mind can always make that yes, this is the way actually I have to overcome. This is the way actually I have to overcome the point and all this comes. So that debate goes on in our mind every time. That was the thing which I was trying to understand at the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain. I think the main things, like we were discussing, right, that the human personality is complex. It consists of antagonistic, opposing, like here, they're not unified, bound together under the control of mind. And we have now seen, I think, again and again in our everyday life, maybe we still would not be convinced, but we have at least acknowledged it marginally that the mind is not a flawless instrument. It is always capable of finding a way of explaining everything and providing admirable reasons for its conclusions. One thing I found very interesting that in the nunneries and monasteries, what they do is when we have debates in our school, we always just choose one point, one side, and we talk, right? But in these, they say to develop the mind, the whole process is, okay, there are two people, they'll debate for and against. And once that debate is done, they'll take a small break and then they'll take the opposite sides. So the person who was saying for will say again. So, how the mind has to be developed to have so much conviction, and how much you have to know and read and understand to see the different aspects. So, it was like that, how it broadens the mind, that the ego doesn't stick. So even though if I'm saying a point, I know the opposite is true too. I thought that was very expansive. So this is what the mind does. And depending on which side one begins to argue from, it can justify any impulse in the world. It's interesting. when we actually acknowledge these things, it's a bit difficult to believe with full fervent that, okay, yes, I want this, it's also nice. So the mind cannot eliminate the multitudinous impulses and desires we cherish. It can only suppress till we become fatigued and foggy, and allowing some other part of the personality to rebel and satisfy the thirst. And I think this is really important, and this is where we slip a lot of times. And the other thing to observe is that one cannot exhaust a desire by fulfilling it just once or a few times. A lot of times we have discussed that, we say, oh, I've been so good, so now I deserve it, right? And then we fall again. So the habit patterns cannot be broken by reinforcing them even marginally. They are nullified only after we have cast ourselves into the greater light of the Spirit. So maybe we should stop here. This is good. And we'll start next week. We'll complete this. It's not very big, but yeah, it would be nice to go through it together. Maybe we can take up one more paragraph. We'll finish at another 5 minutes. So if anybody is willing, I apologize, I'm going here and there. Let's just take one last thing.
I have one question regarding these last 3 lines.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing to observe is that one cannot exhaust a desire by fulfilling it just once or few times. The habit patterns cannot be broken by reinforcing them even marginally. They are nullified only after we have cast ourselves into the greater light of the Spirit. This is a really interesting point. I mean, especially for practice. So I have one question in this. How do we cast ourselves into the greater light of the Spirit? I mean, one method I know is reading. Okay. But beyond that, what does one do? Because a lot of times what I notice in myself and around is that we are reading and then we think we have cast ourselves into the greater light, and then often in practical life we are just suppressing these desires and impulses, uh, which works once or twice in order to not yield to an impulse, but it's not really getting transformed, is what I notice. So I don't know how to yield into the greater light. Do we call the light? Maybe is there a practice that we can explore? Or if you or anybody has any suggestion? Yeah.
Yes, Chetan. Yes, Nandini, please.
No, I was just, when this came from you, how to develop will. I always thought Chetna has such great will, because when I remember I asked how to get up early, Chetna gave such detail answer about what she did, and I was really impressed at like the efforts that you put in. So I really feel you have good will. But anyway, that's the question you all have. I think for myself, because I really struggle on this area of will. I've, I'm a firm believer, even though I like reading, I read all of that, do all of these things, that our thousands effort will always fall flat in front of grace. So even when the last thing about the greater light, that's something I personally feel that if I cannot do it, if I'm trying to strengthen my will, and my lower nature, my prakriti is so strong that I continuously resisting, I just stop banging my head on the wall and I just sit, like how you said, how to access the light. It's just by asking it, just like how child wants the mother and calling for it, the mother picks it up. So like for me, I genuinely like, I remember for a very long time, even the example I've given about getting up early. For a year, I think I used to do, and it was on and off, not happening, not happening. Said, my God, I'm trying all the techniques. I'm sleeping, I'm doing this, I'm sleeping on time, still not happening. Why is such a small thing not happening? And then something in me said that why don't you ask the mother to do it for you? Why do you have to say, if you cannot develop a will, ask her? And I remember before going to sleep, before leaving for university, I used to sit down in front of the picture and used to say, can you please help me get up early? Can you please? She used to even make me get up early. I used to still switch off the phone, switch off my alarm, and I used to sleep back. So she also knew I'm a very stubborn child. To ask, it's been like few months, like I did for a month, I said, but, and you know what? It so happened that I got a job, a kind of a job, something related in the morning, actually in a time that I have to get up now. It is by walking. So I have to walk 3 kilometers. There is no bus. And it is like walking and getting up. And I was just marveled by her plan. And it was something only she could do because it is matching with my university time that I have to reach by 11 and I have to get up by 6:37. I have to walk, do that, and take the train and go to the university. And and that's it. And I now get up every day early. I have to. It's not that I do, but she makes me get up early. So I think that one thing, that grace can really annul everything, that faith. And that is why if somebody asked the mother, I want the psychic, or how can we access the psychic being? Just like we all asked how to develop the will, mother said, do you really want it? The first question is that. So first is asking ourselves, do I really want to do it? Most of the time we just say it, but we don't want it. And if we really want it, and if we cannot do it, just ask her. And like there is no, that is very certain with me, at least from my experience, I can say if you ask her at least 2 times a day, or even once sincerely, or even 100 times you can, it will be done. Your will be strengthened, it will be done. Just asking her in itself will make the difference. Just example I got. Now I still don't want on weekends. I still I try not to get up, but I still get up because I respect her. I said, my God, she has made such big plans for me to get up in the morning. I better do it on weekend. Now I shouldn't sleep. And I do it. And I'm so grateful to her that I wouldn't have been able to do it. Only she could do it. So yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you much.
So Nandini, your sharing, was in line with what we had read, that to be convinced that you can change, to will to change without accepting the excuses of the lower nature, to persist in the will in spite of every fall, and to have an unshakable faith in the health you receive, right? Like, although obviously worded differently, but the same essence, that you would want it firstly, and then you ask for help and persist. Yeah. Very nice. Yeah. Mm. So this casting ourselves into the greater light would be different for, I mean, it's all the same thing, but we have our different ways. So one is keep asking, right? Aspiring, that if one is not feeling, like you said, sometimes I just don't, and one is aspiring, but I want to, I want to. So one doesn't go into passivity. Sometimes we have discussed how we look at a breathing and change the breathing pattern, and it helps. So then you don't fall into it and you can maintain that stability. Chanting is another a very beautiful way into, when one is wanting to do something, one just goes and follows the chant. And a lot of times, like coming back to the breath work, there are a lot of practices. They say that if you're feeling that desire, hold your breath. If you're feeling this, breathe like this way and it would pass. So we have to see what works for us, but knowing, how, again, in Savitri, how she said that I don't obey the God that slays, I obey the God that saves. So just knowing this, that I can transcend and experimenting with it, just, the base of everything is that faith that it will be taken care of, but I have to actively work with it to make it happen if I want it fast. Otherwise, it is being taken care of in eternity, as we discussed. So just associating myself, it's like with the higher or the lower. So where am I associating? If I'm feeling a pattern coming, am I just sitting and saying, Hey Bhagwan, what is wrong with me? When will I change? Or if I just smile at it and say that, okay, another time, but there's more, there's more, there's more. So what am I associating with? With that, I will become that. So, yeah.
Thank you.
So we'll end the session here. So thank you so much for joining in, and may we can further see the importance of will, and may we get, guided to further strengthen our wills, take the right path, and with grace may we, be guided towards the right path. So aspiring and praying for more growth, more joy, more peace for everybody, for all sentient beings. Thank you.